one and all, and welcome to Legends and War, a Legends and Lore podcast coming straight to your ear canals from down under. We're a group of 40k fans who have come together to bring you some grouse content from the world's rowdiest continent. My name is Lachlan, and I'll be your host, and I'm joined today by the rest of the Legends and Lore crew. Say g'day, gents.
G'day, guys.
Hey, guys.
G'day.
How you going?
Alright, so first up, what is it that we do, and who the hell are we? Chris B, I'll throw to you, my friend. Where did
Yes,
we
mate.
come from?
Look, we're just a bunch of Aussie rat bags who enjoy the plastic crack addiction of 40k, and honestly, a lot of us sort of got together at a random tournament, pretty much, and it sort of just bled on from there, really. So it just people meeting people during games, or a couple of buy, swap, sell transactions, and then a bit of a group formed on Facebook Messenger, and here we are, really.
Yeah, indeed. And so, for those who are interested and who have somehow found us without going via YouTube, where can we be found?
We're on all the major socials, so we're on Facebook, we're on Discord, Instagram. All the other guys have got their own Instagram accounts. What
You
else
can
have we
also
got?
go to YouTube and just type in Legends and Lore and it will come up with the channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Very true. And so, for anyone who's lazy, that would be www.youtube.com/legendslore or facebook.com/legends and lore gaming. So, how did everyone get into the hobby? Where did you find it? What edition? Your first army? What armies are you working on? Boyd, let's throw it to you, mate. How did you get into 40k?
Hi, guys. My name's Boyd. When I got started, I was basically 14. I had a Catachan army. I had a couple of friends that I played with, and then I stopped. I stopped for a good 20 years. Recently, I had a knee reconstruction and thought, what am I going to do? I'm not going to sit in front of the computer for 3 months and rehab. So I remembered I had those little Catachans in a box, and then it sparked from there. I bought a Space Wolves mini army, and then from there it's gone to Necrons, Tyranids, Orcs, Astra Militarum, Scions, Chaos, Demons. I have everything that you can think of, basically. Yeah.
You nearly have it all, mate. You've kind of got nearly every base except for Eldar covered.
I actually do have a little Elder army. Yeah.
Of course you do. Of course you do. What do you reckon drags you into the hobby? What are you here for? What keeps you here?
What keeps me here now, as opposed to initially? Initially, it was what drew me in was the whole war concept and the model making. But as time went on, competitive nature. Tournaments is where I'm at. It's my favourite thing. Strategic battles, where I'm at.
I hear that, mate. And so, do you play anything else other than 40k? Do you dabble in fantasy or Lord of the Rings or anything else in the tabletop realm?
I have a couple of Sigmar armies, but not really. I tried my hand at Magic the Gathering, didn't take. I played World of Warcraft for about 10 years, but
Wow.
I've given that up, and Warhammer's 40k's taken over. That's it.
It's a bit of a beast, isn't it? And for anyone at home, what's your Instagram page, mate?
My Instagram is @boyd.lore, and I just update it with some projects I'm working on, our battle reports, things that I like about Warhammer, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, word. All right, so we're going to toss to you, McKenna. When did you get into 40k, my man?
Similar story in that I would have started way back when I was a young tacker. I have no idea who got me my first kit, but it was one of those start painting with an Ultramarine and an Orc or a Gretchen in it.
Classic.
Yeah, so that would have been back in 3rd or 4th edition, I think. I think it was 3rd edition. Played a lot with my brother and my mate across the road and got my ass handed to me terribly by Chaos, mostly because we didn't know the rules. But I really enjoyed the painting and I really enjoyed the models and eventually ended up selling the army. And then at the beginning of 8th edition, I was walking past a store that opened and saw a big old Intercessor Space Marine cutout in the window. And I was like, hang on.
Oh boy.
I have more of a disposable income now. And I really, really enjoyed it. So I went into the store
Mm.
and I bought some new kit and a rulebook and took it home, and have basically been trying to have a game every week or two since then.
Mm. Yeah, awesome. It is those Primaris, man. They were hard to turn down when I first saw them as well. What other armies are you working on at the moment? What's on the painting table?
Literally on my painting table in front of me is some Scorpec Destroyers from the Necron army. I've got some Adeptus Custodes sitting on the shelf. I've got my Raven Guard army of Space Marines, and I've also got the Death Watch Space Marines.
And so, what do you reckon keeps you in the hobby? Like, what grabbed you and what kept you here?
I used to think it was casual play, but then I got into competitive play, but then I got more back into casual play. So I think I just really like the way in which each game will feel fresh and different depending upon who's piloting it, and mixing that in with the really neat visual aesthetic of the setting, especially for 40k. The lore is great, the art is great. They do a really, really good job of making things look really neat and interesting, and I really just like seeing models on the table doing cool stuff.
Amen. And despite the price tag, I mean, none of us can really deny how good the models are. You look at other companies and they're head and shoulders better in most cases anyway. So is there any other tabletop that you dabble in?
No, I did get some Mordheim figurines, but we never ended up actually playing with them. So it's essentially mostly just been, I got into 40k and decided if I was going to throw expensive money at expensive models, I think I would just stick with one. So I've just stuck with 40k at the moment.
It makes sense. I dabbled in Mordheim myself, and it's a messy game. But I mean, is 40k a tidy game? It's a bit hard to say at the moment. Do you have an Instagram that anyone can follow you on?
Yeah, you can find me at Hot Pot Brew on Instagram.
Yeah, awesome. All right, and we'll throw to Chris. Chris, my man, what got you into 40k?
Well, so I'm funnily enough on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I actually got into 40k at the beginning of 8th edition, so only a few years ago. So a friend of mine who had been into 40k for quite some time was attending an event, and this was ARC 40k, so one of the biggest events held in Melbourne. And I had no interest in sort of joining the hobby or collecting armies or whatnot. I just sort of had nothing to do that weekend, and just decided, look, I'll just go down and check out and maybe drink a couple of beers and just see what's happening. And when I got there, I just got during each mission and each round, they would sort of segue to some visuals with a bit of graphics, and they'd have like an intro video of what was happening. And usually it was sort of clips taken from some of the Warhammer games, like Dawn of War and Space Marine and whatnot. And I just got totally consumed by it, to be honest. Within those couple of days, I was just, because I'd sort of been into StarCraft and some of the PC games when I was a young
classics,
kid. So
classics.
Yeah, the classics, and it sort of hit that nerve a bit, 40k for me. And I do remember when I was a young kid going past the stores with my parents in shopping centres and stuff, and seeing the models there. Then I remember a couple of times I went inside the stores and my parents just looked at the price tags at that time and just like, there's no chance. I'm sorry.
It was so mystical back then, all those boosters on the shelf. It was like, oh wow.
All these kids at those painting desks just having a go, and it's just it was so it was literally that tournament that got me into 40k. And I guess I just sort of had a chat to him and just used my mate as a guide to sort of how to get into it. And because obviously when you decide that you want to get into it, you get bombarded by so much information and visuals, and it's a bit overwhelming. So having someone who had been in the hobby for a little while was really, really good to me. So yeah,
absolutely. And support those hobby younglings that you might know out and about. There's always someone on the fringe. It's always nice to throw them a model or two and a spare pot of paint.
Absolutely.
Definitely helps. I mean, I think most people had someone else as their gateway. I definitely did. So what armies are you working on at the moment, mate?
Look, so at the moment I've got a Creations of Bile army on the desk. I'm trying to get this up and running for an event that's coming up in March, hopefully.
That would be Arc, wouldn't it?
It would be Arc, yep. So it's a pretty ambitious task with only about 7 or 8 weeks to go. There's a lot of painting and building still yet to happen. So, but yeah, that's actually my second army. So my first army was AdMech, and I guess when I was looking, the first thing I did with my mate when I sort of got into the hobby was just go on the GW website and had a look at all the factions, and just sort of, I kind of wanted to play something that looked a bit different. And I know at the event that I went to go watch my mate at, I saw a lot of Space Marines. I saw, a bit of Chaos, a lot of Tau at the time. And I rarely saw AdMech, being played. And so I kind of gravitated towards that as well, just being, having something different and unique to sort of showcase at that time. So
they're a bit of a niche in their own right. They come and go a bit from the meta.
Yeah, and certainly in the coming, in the last few months and year or so, they've been fleshed out considerably. But at the time, they were a very unique faction. So yeah, that's what's happening at the moment. Really exciting to see what I can kit bash with the Creations of Bile. I think there's a lot of potential for, creative ideas to flourish. So really looking forward to getting stuck into it.
So do you reckon it'd be the kit bashing that gets you into the hobby?
Definitely, 100%. For me, it's and the beauty of this hobby in general is that there's always other miniatures, like other miniature ranges on hand, which you can grab bits from or inspiration from as well, that you can kind of say, oh yeah, that'd be a great possessed, or or whatever the case may be. So I think Chaos in general does that, but also Creations of Bile really delves deep into that, which I really love.
And you've got some wonderfully weird possessed, so I'm looking forward to getting those on the channel.
I do, yes.
They're fantastic. All right, and you play any other tabletop games, or is this your one and only?
I would say it's my one and only. Some mates and I dabble in some Cthulhu, which is a smaller version of a tabletop game. It's sort of a kill team sort of style board game. That's about it. I haven't really touched Sigma or Bolt Action. I wanted to sort of try as well. There's there's a whole heap. I want to try Blood Bowl.
Tons,
I really want to. Blood Bowl. I really want to get into as well. So yeah, there's heaps.
I'll see what time permits. And your Instagram page, mate?
Yeah, just on the at Legends and Lore Gaming official one. So yeah, you can catch us on there. Send us a direct message if you want to reach out, and all the updates will be on there.
Cheers, bud. I guess I'll have to introduce myself. My name's Lachlan. I've been playing 40k since I was about 21. I splashed a bit in high school. A mate got me a few Space Marines and a few Goblins, but it didn't really go very far. And about early 20s, some mates dragged me in. I picked up a Drukhari army, Dark Elder at the time. I remember, I think a Lilith Hesperax was my first model, and I quickly fell in love with the Dark Kin. I moved on to a Blood Angels army and had around 50 Assault Marines, as well as a bunch of tanks, and that was probably the most fun I've had in the hobby for a long time. I splashed in a few other armies and some Sallies and some Thousand Suns, but ultimately ended up making a big mistake selling them a few years later when all my mates got out of the hobby. A few years later, it tickled my nose again with the Heresy releases, and I decided I'd dive back in. Heresy didn't stick around for too long, but I've found a bit of a rekindled love for it, with a new Guard army, a White Scars army, some Word Bearers, and ultimately found them not as exciting as the Drukhari, so here we are again. And unfortunately, that Codex obviously ended up as a meta pick last year, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it falling out of favour so I can run it again and not feel bad about it. So yeah, here's to a less dominant 2022, hopefully. I'd have to say kit bashing, just like Chris, gets me into the hobby, but like Boyd, I've found the competitive scene has actually really grabbed me recently, and the kit bashing, keeps me excited, but the competitive edge is definitely what's firing me up lately. And playing with all these boys on the channel has definitely kept it more interesting and fun than it usually has been. I dabble a little bit in Lord of the Rings and bolt action, but apart from that, 40k takes up a considerable amount of my focus. I'm also on Instagram at lock.lore if anyone is curious. Bouncing over to you now, Jackie boy. Tell me about your
mate.
40k journey, mate. How did you get into the hobby?
All right. So I started when I was a youngling, very young, about 10 or 11, I reckon. One of my best mates from school had an Elder army at the time, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was just awesome. I was always into models myself. I loved painting airplanes, jet fighters, and your F-18 Hornets and stuff like that. So I was really into the hobby aspect already. Age and the idea of an army you could use and almost essentially play chess with in some a dynamic chess game. So yeah, that definitely drew me into the hobby. And
I hear that. It's definitely a really jacked up chess on crack.
I see the pun. I don't know if you did that pun on purpose. It was good.
I'll never tell. So what was your first army, mate? And what edition was that?
Okay, so that was 3rd edition, and I got the relic, the 3rd edition starter set, the one that came with the 20 models of Dark Elder and the 10 tactical marines and the land speeder. I got the bee's knees. Yeah,
the one from that just came back the other day.
Yeah, that one. Yeah,
full cycle for you, mate. So what are you working on right now?
Funnily enough, full circle rather. Straight back to the Black Templars, actually. So that was actually my first army because they were actually painted as Black Templar back then. I went with them. That was my first army, and then I've literally done a full circle and gone back. So yeah,
what a journey.
Very excited. Yeah, man.
Love that for you, mate. And so, what other armies are on the table or on the shelf for you?
Right now, I'm really trying to nut out the Primera side of the Black Templar army that I've got. Once that's done, I've also got a Grey Knight army that I'm also started to build actually just last night. So yeah, that's what's coming.
Yeah, awesome. Keen to see it. And you're definitely going to have a spicy year. We got a few things to look out for. Definitely won't be pitting the tower for too long, I don't think.
No, not at all.
So what do you reckon brings you in and keeps you here in the hobby, mate?
So definitely the tabletop version of the game. Love the tactical play, and I wouldn't necessarily say hardline competitive, though I would love to get to those levels, but I just time factor for me is just not there. But I do love that side of it. I love the tactics, the broad range of model line, and just so much things going on at once, and just trying to work it all out and get the best out of your army.
Yeah, mate, I hear casual competitive is definitely my bread and butter as well. Do you play anything else tabletop?
I don't really. So that's a no. I did actually. That's a no. I did actually buy some Necromunda not that long ago, just to branch out into something different. I just thought, I just got into it a little bit, watched a few videos online, and I was like, you know what, I can mess with this. So I bought a starting kit and a few gangs. So there's something there, but I've never played a game before. I've only just watched YouTube clips of it. So I'd be keen to get them painted and have a go too. So
well, with any luck, we might stick that out sometime later in the year if things roll out right and this bloody pandemic pisses off. That'd be great.
Oh, it'd be
And
fantastic.
what's your Instagram page, mate?
So you find me at jack.w.law.
All right, so coming up for 40k in 2022, it's looking to be a pretty massive year for 40k release-wise. Hopefully they can make up for some of the lost time for the last 2 years of delays. We've just received, at the time of recording, the Custards and Gene Stealer Cults releases, which are both looking quite slick. I haven't heard too many complaints yet myself. And depending on release date, Tau is not too far away either. And some of those weapons are looking absolutely lethal. A little bit gross even. I won't lie, I'm a little bit intimidated. From the breadcrumbs GW is releasing, and if the rumour mill is to be believed, we'll soon see a combined Eldari Codex for Craftworld, Yannari and Harlequins, a CSM Codex with new Bikes, Possessed, Warpsmith, Chosen and Cultist varieties, a new Chaos Knights Codex, and potentially even World Eaters with an Anger and Primarch. And even a little harder to believe, Squats. Space Dwarves is something I did not expect to see. Don't know about you guys.
Wait, really?
Is that going to be a thing? You're going to bring them back?
In the rumour mill, they're saying so guess we'll see if that actually happens.
Are you sure that's not just
which
GW
of these
trolling
upcoming possibilities and releases are you chaps looking forward to? Looks like a good year for you, Jack. It's brought you last year.
Oh, look, I'm just full of choices at the moment. So obviously, massive Custodian player. Love them. Love the new Codex. So that's fantastic. Also play Tau, so fantastic as well.
Oh, those bloody railguns. Have you got any railguns on the shelf?
I actually do. I have 2. So, and there's a 3rd in box. So look, the potential is there, man. The potential is there.
Grouse.
I've got 2 for you as well.
So, there we go. Maybe throw.
Yeah, yuck. Is that Hammerhead chassis the only one that takes a railgun?
Yeah, that particular railgun it does. Yeah, that's it. There's a rail rifle, but yeah, for that railgun, that's the only chassis.
Oh, that's good to hear. What about you, McKenna? What are you looking forward to, mate?
Goodness. So the Adeptus, really, really looking forward. Really liking the look of that codex. It's not horribly overpowered. It's themic. They really shifted a couple of things. The dropping of the 3+ invulnerable saves to 4s across the board is great. That just generally tended to leave a lot of people you're playing against feeling salty if you just banked 10 saves in a row.
It's gross. It's so gross.
And the shift to making characters even more powerful, I feel, just gives a flavor to the army. You can do some really interesting things with the mixes there, and I think everyone's excited about it. Just the amount of news and people talking about the new codex was probably twice what I was expecting based on any others. So,
what about those new sisters? Either of you guys keen on those?
Yeah, they sold out really quickly, so I haven't had a chance to collect it or even see any of the new models. But if things turn our way and I happen to play one, that'd be rad.
I've got 3 up my sleeve myself. I don't have any Custards anymore, but I do have 3 squads of sisters that have been waiting for their time in the sun. So pretty keen for that, I must say.
Side note, I'm really interested in Eldar. What they're doing with them.
Is that so?
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about the weapons is that they're all really high strength. They've got like spears that are strength 8, strength 9, damage flat 3, damage 4, those sorts of things, but with only 1 or 2 AP. And I think that makes for a really interesting army because they're really high strength and reasonably high damage, but AP is not their strong point. So they've actually got kind of a weakness in the army, and I think that's really important these days.
Yeah, and it seems these days that while you might have a weakness here, there's often a way to get around it anyway. So I think that tends to be the challenge. It's like, are you going to pay to plug that weakness, or are you going to stick with it?
You've got a cool hand.
Yeah. Boyd, how about you, mate? What's got you G'd up for this year?
I'm excited. Well, I'm not going to say I'm excited. With Chaos Space Marines, so at the moment they're in a position where they don't have the +1 wound, all that kind of stuff that all the Space Marines got, but they do have really spicy stratagems. I feel like once they kind of level out and do get those extra wounds, they're not going to have that spiciness to what we have now. In saying that, I'd love to see World Eaters Codex. I think you touched on it before, but I love Khorne. That's my favourite. I'd love to see that. And my Scions. I'd love to see some Scions upgrades, with guard in its entirety, but the drop force needs to come back in strength.
Oh, mate, I hear that. I'm on board that train.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Plasmas are kind of off you at the moment. I hate the fact that you can pretty much kill yourself from rolling a 1.
Yeah, it's such a pain. And I think you're right there. Like, the Black Templars kind of lost a bit of their spice. They went from being a kind of really juicy, unnoticed prong of the Space Marines. But then, as soon as they got their book, they flattened out the spice and they just kind of gave it a generally nice rounded edge, which it's a bit of a pity sometimes. You know, you bring everyone up to standard, but then you kind of flatten them out at the same time.
Yeah. Also,
I think there's still spice there.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, there is.
For sure. Just not the same flavour. They were chocolate, and now they're strawberry.
Yeah, that's true. Or vanilla. No, not vanilla.
Mate, vanilla's a solid flavour.
That's ultimate.
You're saying strawberry isn't?
No.
We're going to have an argument.
I'm not flavorist, you know.
I gotta say, you guys have a really interesting your flavors that you're choosing for spiciness are interesting.
Fair.
Rum and raisin. There we go.
All right, Chris. Anything you're looking forward to this year, mate?
Well, certainly from a Creations of Baal perspective, the CSM stuff is certainly enticing. I remember a few months back when some rumours were floating about on the forums. There was a list of some potential units that were going to be released, and I had a look through some of those, and a couple of those really caught my eye from a hobbying, kit bashing perspective. Some real potential on the hobbying side, and so there's a rumour that some form of a human mutant is coming out. And
I heard that.
The second one being a possessed human, which they put in brackets, monstrously horrible. So that sounds like fun to me.
If anyone jumps in the Discord, you can find that linked on our YouTube or Facebook somewhere. You can see Chris's possessed, and they nearly fit the bracket of possessed mutant humans anyway. So you're like ahead of the curve, mate.
Yeah. So I think on GW's perspective, their sculpting and their release, their design has been on point. I can't fault them with that. I think ever since the release of their Death Guard, I think they really nailed that release. And I think they've had the odd sort of, odd release here and there that looked a bit, odd. But for the most part, I think they've been doing really, really good stuff design-wise. So I think there's a lot of potential there with the new CSM stuff that any hobbyist can get their hands on and, go to town, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Personally, I'm pretty keen for the Chaos Space Marines bandwagon. As long as word bearers don't suck, I'll be happy. And really got my fingers crossed for some good Talon rules, but I guess we're going to have to see what happens. I don't think Guards getting love anytime soon, unfortunately. Poor guys, they always get left behind. So, moving on, let's jump to some Meta Watch. With all these changes and all these new codices coming out, where it's guaranteed to mix up the competitive scene. And while it's quite important to not get too focused on the meta, it is ever changing. We do have to remember that. It can be helpful for casual players to keep an eye on to keep up with new combo ideas and new threats that they're likely to see in competitions or at friendly games. After a year of Drukhari and AdMech dominance, it's for sure that the meta is going to get a complete shake-up with Custards, Genestealer Cults, Tau, Elder, Chaos all coming in hot on their heels. What does everyone think we're going to see this year? Will the new Custards and GSC and Tau books make a splash? What impact do you think they're going to make, Macca?
I think Custards are actually not going to be meta breakers.
What's that?
Well, okay, so the really bonkers mixes that you can do kind of were army-wide powerful or defensive breaking. So, for instance, when AdMech came along, it was basically they had a couple of stratagems that could make a cheap massed troop do huge amounts of damage to a whole bunch of things. Similarly, when the Drukhari had their update, what were the flamer things called?
Oh, the
original
Kronos,
one.
the Kronos Dark Technomancers that make them
That's the one.
essentially like plasmas.
Yeah, and so that kind of bypassed they were like, hey, let's make this powerful rule, and then we'll apply a restriction to that, but the Flamers kind of bypassed that restriction, and because you had open top the new codex is more of a side grade than it is an upgrade or a downgrade. Yeah, the Rack Flamers.
Yeah.
I'm finding the Custodes Codex has a couple of things which shifted their defensive profile and shifted their offensive profile, but actually toned down some of the gotchas and changed the general army power to be pushed up in different ways. So I'd say the new codex is more of a side grade than it is an upgrade or a downgrade.
Sure. And that's not such a bad thing.
No, not at all.
No, it's kind of nice when they don't let it go too mad, because everyone kind of loses their shit over it. So it seems they tend to be picking side grades lately over, upgrades or downgrades, which is nice. What do you reckon, Jack? What are your thoughts on the new Custies?
Yeah, love it. I'm a big fan. Obviously, yeah, we've lost our essentially army-wide 3-up invo, which yeah, from a competitive point of view, hurts a little bit. But like McKenna said before, it just helps level out the game a little bit. Kind of makes when you're playing against them, it's not as feel bad, and that's something to think about.
Yeah. I think that's really important to the game as well.
Oh, definitely. I mean, like McKenna also said, we did get a debuff, you could say, or a side grade for a few of our strats. We lost the teleport homer, which used to allow us to the Custodies to teleport within 3 inches of a Vexilla. So that was game breaking. And they also lost the stooping dive.
Yeah, that was huge.
Where they could,
really?
Yeah, from the bikes. Yeah, so they can't essentially kind of do a charge move in the opponent's charge phase anymore either. So there's some things that they've lost, but then also there's something they've gained. Genetic Alchemy has become a 1 CP or a 2 CP strat as opposed to a 2 CP strat.
Mm-hmm. What does that do?
Transhuman.
So Genetic Alchemy is Custodies transhuman.
Ah, sure.
Yeah. So that's cheaper for units that are 3 or less models, and it's a 2 CP for 4 and up.
Yeah.
So, and the benefit of that is that usually you're playing not usually, but you can play a Custodian army as an MSU style build, which I think I'll be doing, and your strats used to cost you 2 CPs, and now going to cost you 1.
Yeah.
So your CPs will get you further. The changes to Trajan also allow for you. So he gains a CP, and he gets a CP regen on a 5+. So his moment shack will actually change a little bit. So you've got every time you use a strat now, you can get it back once per turn, obviously, or once per battle round on a 5+. So you've got the regen there as well. So you've actually got a lot of CPs, probably even more so again than you did in the previous iteration of the Custodies.
Yeah,
for sure.
Honestly, I'm really psyched for the Solar Watch. A lot of people are saying the Emissaries and the Shadowkeepers do good. I really like the Solar Watch change. It was kind of their idea is they're supposed to be quick, but their rules didn't really allow them to do that in the earlier edition. The only person who could advance and charge was your Warlord, which was a Warlord trait. It only worked on himself. It didn't really do anything much for them. The new changes is that everyone can fall back and charge again.
Yeah,
which means you can cycle out units. Yeah, you can get a Warlord trait, which can allow you to advance and charge. So that's Sally Forth. The Silver Talon gives fallback, shoot, and charge, and you can take the Swift as an Eagle Captain Commander upgrade to give advance and charge onto your Warlord. So we'll probably be seeing a lot of troops on the table with Solar Watch, but they can really push up the table, and that's a very different play style for the troops in the Adeptus, rather than just taking a whole bunch of bikes.
Sure.
Yeah.
And do the sisters get the bonuses with the faction traits, or are they like
No.
a nerd?
No.
Nah, so it is separate.
Okay. Good to know. Have either of you got a list on the brew that you want to share?
Oh, I definitely do. So I actually
What do you got, mate?
I think as far as competitive wise goes, I think the Empress Chosen is the shield host, is the goer. So essentially with that shield host, you've got two. So every shield host has two traits, and so with the Empress Chosen, his first trait, every turn you can reroll a 1 to hit or to wound per unit. So that's pretty powerful. That's and their second trait is a 5-up feel no pain against mortal wounds, which is against an elite army like Custodies, like you're always worried about mortal wound output of other armies, T-Suns, Grey Knights, whatever it may be. And with a small model count, if you cop 10 mortal wounds, that's your whole squad gone. That's 150 points down the drain. Now, if you've got a 4-up info against that, you halve that straight off the bat.
For sure.
So that's their traits, but I don't think that's quite powerful. Don't get me wrong, but I think the other bit of spice with the Empress Chosen is they've got a stratagem as well, and it costs 1 CP. And what it allows you to do is you can pick a unit in your command phase, and the unit you pick changes their shield host to any shield host you want. So,
is it their host or their stance?
No, their host, brother. So what you can do?
Oh, there we go.
So what you can do, if you've got a squad of bikes up and it's engaged, in my command phase, I can spend 1 CP and turn them into, say, Solar Watch, like Chris was saying. And then then from that turn, they can actually fall back and still charge in that turn because they count as being Solar Watch.
Oh man, I'm gonna double check this.
Yeah, man, it is. So for 1 CP, and I'm sure this will go to 2 CPs because they'll just get absolutely hammered.
Yeah, get abused.
Yeah, this is going to get abused because there's no reason not to choose it because you can choose the shield host you want for the opportune time. There's another one. There's one for Shadow Keepers, which is an anti-character one. You can, if you have a unit against characters, you just spend on them, and then bang, you're gone. So.
It ignores the vulnerable saves, doesn't it?
Or
something.
Off the top of my head, I don't actually know, but yeah, I know that it is another powerful trait.
And why get bracketed? Sounds like they're a jack of all trades, eh?
Yeah, and when you're playing in a competitive setting, you need to be able to take on. You have to be able to adapt to what you're playing against, and I just feel
100%,
like that one CP strat allows so you can't get tied up in combat without falling back and charging if you want to.
Oh man,
you can choose. Yeah, there's so much flexibility with it.
Yeah,
so
can confirm.
He doesn't have
Sorry. Yeah, just can confirm esteemed amalgam 1 CP. In your command phase, choose an Emperor's Chosen unit, and then they select another shield host's fighting style. The fighting style being those double traits.
Oh, that's
spicy. Really good.
That is spicy. Yeah,
so good. Yeah.
So what's your list, mate? What are you brewing on?
Alrighty, so head with the MSU build. I just feel like that's where they're at the moment. I've got Trajan. Naturally, I think any list without Trajan is, oh man, I just don't know what you're doing because he's so good for his points. I've also got a shield captain on the Dawn Eagle.
He went up to 9 wounds, right?
He did go up to 9 wounds, so you don't have to pay the captain commander point, which you used to pay a CP in the old codex to get that. That's gone. He's a captain commander in this list. So he's a victor of the blood game, so he gets a second warlord trait. This one, he's got a superior creation, so he gets a 5-up info. 5-up feel no pain, rather. And I also would give him the Auric Exemplar, which is an Emperor's Chosen special one, which each time this warlord fights, after resolving all of its attacks, it can make a number of attacks equal to the number of amount of enemy models destroyed as a result of the attacks to a maximum of 4. So if you kill 4 models, you get to roll 4 more dice. So it's pretty spicy, man.
Yeah, indeed.
He's also got an ability which I gave him called the Stasis Hunter. The model is eligible to declare a charge in a turn which it fell back. So like McKenna was saying before with the Solar Watch, this guy can just do it without actually being in the Solar Watch. So you don't have to spend the 1 CP on him as well.
Nice.
So,
nice, that's great.
Yeah, he's pretty good. moving on. I've got 2 units of 3 sword and board shield guard. Mainly just objective holding and running up the table. And to round up the troops is a squad of 5 sisters, actually, with the bolters. So they've actually, as of this codex, they've become a troops choice.
Awesome.
The only restriction is you can't have more sisters than you have custodian units, which is fine. But
unless you run a pure sisters attachment.
Unless you run a pure sisters detachment, of course.
Sure.
But yeah, as a mixed Talons of the Emperor, which is what they should be called, but as a mixed Talons of the Emperor detachment, yeah, you can't have more sisters than custodian units. For the elites, I actually went with 2 single man Alaris custodians. So Alaris got a little bit of a change as well in this codex. Their squad size used to be 3 to 10, and now it's 1 to 6. So you can actually have single units. 1.
Really?
You have single dudes. So
wow.
With the new changes to the secondaries, it won't work as well with the engage and the with the rod or retrieve Octerius data or knocking
because
data.
You need a 5-man, right?
You need a 5-man, yeah. So they're not as so they're good for now, but as soon as that the Minotaurum drops out and the release comes in 2 weeks' time, they're back out again. So they're good for 2 weeks, but they drop
hoping you came in, mate.
Yeah, I hope they drop the utility in 2 weeks' time. But in saying that too, they're still obsec, and
they count as double
by themselves. Yeah, they count as double. So he can drop in, he could shoot, or he could even hide for a turn and then come out and pop and then Alaris is terminated by himself. He's still not a
still a beast, right?
Still a beast, man.
Is that 4 wounds?
4 wounds, man. Yeah, 4 wounds. So there's still something there. And in my last elites, I actually chose a Gladys Dreadnought, which is just a sword and board one. I think they're just great. The -1 to hit in combat, and their flame of their sword, they're pretty awesome. So
just a great model.
That being said, they nerfed a lot of the stuff. Shadowkeepers, you can't do Shadowkeepers -1 straight to incoming attack on vehicles anymore.
No, not really.
You can only do Eternal Penitent, which is the +1 attack and reroll charges on one thing once. And a bunch of the other stuff doesn't affect vehicles in the same way anymore. So the vehicles got a little bit of a nerf with the Dreadnoughts.
A fraction of a nerf in that regard, yeah.
Yeah, but other things got to push up, so it's not too bad. It's just rad to have this cool fighting robot on the table anyway. So
most definitely. So man. So we've got a fast attack. I've gone with 2 units of 3 Virtus Praetors, which are the jet bikes. Now I think they're a great utility unit. In the old codex you'd run a big block, but I think in this codex you run smaller units. And that's mainly because, in my opinion, it's partially because of their Empress Chosen with their reroll one dice. Just having smaller units gives you more utility and gets more out of their traits. Yeah, so I've got them in there. One's equipped with 3 salvo launchers, one's equipped with 2 hurricanes and 1 salvo. They're just for points because it's 2,000 on the nose, just so you know.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
Very important.
Impressive for a Custard's list, I must say, with those big points.
It's very hard. It's very hard to make it all work, but we made it work. And actually, so my last fast attack, I actually put a squad of Witch Seekers in, which another squad of sisters.
Yeah, awesome.
With the flamers. Now, these guys actually got an interesting rule in the new codex, and that is at the start of the first battle round before the first turn begins, this unit or the transport they're embarked within can make an all move up to 6 inches as if it was your movement phase, and you can't obviously land within 9 inches of an enemy model. So you've got a free 6-inch move at the start, and I've actually added a rhino to this list, which we'll get to. It's in the list, all right? I don't have to get to it later on, but it is in the list. So essentially, you can fill up the rhino with the 2 sister squads, and you do this once you know who goes first and second. If you go first, you can move him forward. If you go second, you can move him back and tuck him away a little bit, and you can cover yourself for some incoming fire.
Pretty wicked that they've let the transport get that rule. I think that's really nice. It's a pity they didn't give the transport the -1 aura, which they used to do somewhere.
Once upon a time. But
yeah, that'll do.
That'll do. I'll take that. Better than nothing.
Is that the full list?
No, mate. And last but not least is the Talmud Heavy Dreadnought.
Oh,
Taking the
Now,
boy.
yeah. So he lost core in the new codex.
That's fair.
What's it? Yeah. So that's fair to some. But no. So he actually plays really well in this list because once again, Emperor's Chosen and the reroll once to hit and wound, reroll one hit or one wound per attack means that, you know, Custodians generally hit on twos. Well, they always hit on twos unless they're damaged, and normally wound on twos, especially Big Talmud with his fist. So it's kind of like before you used to trying to run your Talmud up with the Trajan. Now he's lost the core, so he can't do that anymore. But now Talmud can run up by himself and doesn't need Trajan to babysit him anymore. So
yeah.
So in some ways it's a side grade, and in some ways, yeah, it's a semi buff because he's his own unit now, and he can go play by himself without needing to have a character behind him. So I think it's pretty interesting, and I gave him the Eternal Penitent, which is still the same, plus one attack and reroll charges. So yeah,
and this is what I was meaning by it's a side grade. Is that things which kind of get a downgrade, but now it makes them play differently?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely feel like some of the trixier parts. Though saying that, Tanglefoot was kept, but only can be used once per
bugger.
turn. Yeah, so that's
better. That's much better.
So like you can't do it in someone's movement phase and their charge phase to really like slow them down.
So annoying.
it's still in the game, so it's still a thing.
Oh, well, at least you kept it. It's good to see they kept some of their kind of unique traits. It's definitely one of those annoying strats that grabs you from time to time when you forget about it.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, keen to see how that list goes, mate. Do you reckon it has any play into the Thick City or the new Crusher Stampede list with all these big beasts flopping around with -1 damage?
-1 damage, yeah. So that's the biggest thing, isn't it? I mean, that's the...
Yeah, how do you get around it?
How do you get around it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone used to complain about D3 damage, and now J-Dub's done the ultimate joke stuff.
Wish you had it, mate.
And given everyone -1 damage, so now everyone it's leveled the game out, put everyone at 2 damage, and now everyone's like, "Oh, I prefer D3 damage now."
But that being said, there's that new fighting style, which means you get an extra attack, but it drops your damage down to 1.
Damage. So
you might as well do that because you're going to be damaging on 1 anyway. So it's just another chance to just get that extra bit through. So since we're going to be taking larger squads now, because we kind of want to, it means instead of having... You're just going to get about 5 extra attacks in there.
Yeah, for sure.
Just to try and push that up, so...
I've got to grab your perks where you can get them, eh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, look, those 2 lists that you just named are definitely the top of the meta at the moment. And I think anyone worth their salt would tell you that.
All right, so on the topic of competitive play, 40k tournaments around the world are starting to increase in attendance and popularity, especially as more and more players are returning to the hobby, since we've all been stuck here at home for the last 2 years or so, depending on which country you come from. I got into tournaments myself in 2021 and found it a great way to test my lists, strategies, and generally improve my game. As a generally casual player that loves a bit of narrative, what tips would you offer to casual players, Chris, that are wanting to dip their toes in? How do you like to approach a tournament? What are your goals?
Oh, good one. Look, the beauty about this hobby and the tournament scene is that every tournament is different and geared towards certain types of players depending on how you approach it. So, yeah, you can find a heap of competitive, ITC style tournaments around, but you can actually find some really amazing tournaments that aren't competitive, that are lore based and even just hobby based. So
Absolutely.
I guess my tip is to just reach out to your hobby community and find out what tournaments, events suit your style. So have a chat to a TO or delve deep into the players pack and get a real feel of how that event could run. And that's exactly how it panned out for me when I got into the hobby. So I went and watched a mate play at an event called ARC.
That's in Melbourne.
And yep, that's in Melbourne, run by Dan Attrill. Does an amazing job running that.
And we've got a little intro to that on the channel if you want to go and dig
Yes,
it up.
we did. But that particular event is neither narrative nor competitive. It's actually a hobby event. So it's a real showcase of people's armies, whether you're a seasoned painter or just a battler doing the old minimum 3 layers. And I guess the whole spirit of that event is all about the community. You know, we get guys coming from all around Australia to that event, to Melbourne. We all get there. Yeah, we all get there for a couple of days. We roll some dice and we have some fun.
Sure. And do you have any goals going in there? Are you out to get a certain amount of wins, or do you go in with a certain kind of goal in mind for to have a certain squad or character succeed? What are you going in there looking for?
Well, definitely not wins. Particularly because ARC specifically, they have a tendency to run some real curveball missions. And so it's not like you can go into the tournament or the event with a list that, it does A, B, C, and D against A, B, C, and D. Missions are really, really interesting. And it really challenges you to think differently about how you play the game and how you play your army, in fact. Sure. And I really love that. So I don't go there for the wins. I primarily go there because, I love just meeting new people, chatting hobby, seeing some amazingly painted armies. And I guess trying to break my glass ceiling of my own painting skills. When I go to these events and I see some of the work of these guys, and it's really inspiring, and it forces you to sort of to reach that next level, right? To think differently about how you approach building, how you approach painting. So that's my main focus when I go to these tournaments. A lot of them have best painted or best TO's choice or player's choice or whatnot. So it really is geared towards both the hobbyist and the player or the general. So yeah, definitely my tip would be just to have a chat to the TO or have a look at the players pack, get an understanding of how it runs. A lot of them focus on sportsmanship and painting scores and whatnot, which tends to show that they're slightly less competitive. And just have a try, really. Just go there, sign up, roll some dice, and if you like it, go back. If you don't, move on.
Sure. And there's always a local legend at some local gaming club that knows of the tournaments if you can't find one yourself. So it's always worth going to the local gaming club or shop to see if they know what's going on in your local scene. You'd be surprised. There's often events you've never even heard of.
Very true. Very true.
As a hybrid player of both competitive and casual, what do you think changed in your gameplay over the last few tournaments, Jack? What tips would you have for those considering attending a tournament to make the most out of their experience?
All right. So, for me personally, obviously with all the lockdowns and everything, as of late, I haven't played anything since Bladestorm, which was the start of last year.
Mate, VTC.
Oh, VT! Oh my God!
How could you forget?
Brain lapse.
Yeah, rude.
Which is very rude. Very rude.
You totally forgot about Boyd, mate.
Yeah, I know. What about me? Which is a team event, which is actually something different for us as well. So that was interesting. The teams event, that was new for us. We'd never played a teams event before, and it was interesting. The dynamic, you obviously got a captain, and you're pitting certain armies against certain armies, and you're trying to get the best matchups available. So that actually added an element to the game that singles tournaments doesn't have. So I actually really enjoyed that. So I hope there's more of those coming on down here. But yeah, coming into a tournament, go with an open mind. Unless you're at the very tip top of the competitive edge, go in there with a mindset to win and also there to have fun. So take every game with a grain of salt, and unless you're at the you're there to roll some dice, have a laugh, have a bit of fun, use your army. That's what it's all about, and that's what this game is all about. It's definitely a social game. It's funny that the amount of time you spend actually by yourself to get your armies to the point to actually play the social game is pretty crazy. But
it's massive, isn't it? Yeah, so much isolation.
Yeah, but once you actually get there, it is definitely a social game. So, make the most of it, and just remember always have fun. Yeah, definitely.
For sure. That was actually my first tournament, VTC. Yeah.
Wow.
Chris?
Yeah, so sorry, mate. I just wanted to quickly mention too, I know because Jack was talking about, just going there with an open mind. And I think that's such a great point. And also the fact that go with an open mind that you're just going to meet some really great people. And I think, particularly for myself, that was the case too, because when I had attended my first event, being ARC all those years ago, my mate who actually got me into the hobby didn't attend. So I actually had no sort of backup in a way. I just kind of went there on my own, didn't really know anyone, and I just sort of just rolled with it, right? And it was actually the first day one is when I had met Jack.
Oh wow!
I played him on the day one, and run my AdMech against his custodies, and it just sort of
classic.
We had
classic
and the game was a draw too. The game was a draw, so
actually drew.
That's perfect.
And
That's actually perfect.
We had such a great time, and it just spawned the rest of this.
As our most competitive dedicated player, Boyd, and a member of 2022's Victorian team here in Australia, what are your goals coming into it?
Well, for me, my goals are to win every game. in the team championships coming up, we're going to have dedicated roles. The Vic squad has 8 players, and before when the lists get released, each one does their research, puts out what they are strong against, what they're weak against, and you have a very skewed list. You don't have something that can do everything. You have something that can beat psychic. You have something that can beat shooting. You have something that can beat a specific type of list, and then you hopefully get your matchups correct, and you get a green to go ahead with that.
For sure. And for those that don't know, in teams tournaments, you generally are ranking everything as a red, and is it an orange and a green?
Yeah,
green
pretty
being
much
something that you should win into, and orange being something that you're not sure about, and red being a pretty bad matchup.
Yeah.
And then do you get to choose what if they're like, hey, you're going to be going up against a vehicle-heavy, iron warriors, you could be like, oh, we'll send Boyd and his plasma tanks.
So what happens is you've got 2 captains of each, the captain of each team, and they roll off, and one gets to make the first pick. They'll put forward an army, and then the opposing captain gets to put forward an army, and then you switch over. So the other team gets to put forward an army, and the other one has to pick against it. Eventually, you'll be left with 4 lists. 2 of those lists will be your ace lists, or your kind of top lists, and the other 2 will be the last 2 that haven't been chosen. So there is a bit of chance for choice, but you've also got the chance to combat or hold lists back to see what else the other guys put out to kind of put them against that. So you'll have a few choices, and you'll have a few that you throw up to be hit.
Yeah. And also remember that you learn more from a loss about your army.
Oh, for sure.
If you keep going along winning, you don't find the weaknesses in your army, and you don't know how to defend against something. So don't be too salty about losing, which I'm trying to learn myself. But take it with a grain of salt and continue on.
Absolutely. All right, and that about wraps it up for the first episode. Thanks everyone for tuning in and for enduring our jabbering. I hope you enjoyed it. Drop us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. We've got a sneaky 3K subscriber giveaway coming up soon, so pay attention to that one. Grab us on the socials if you're keen to have a chat, and definitely jump into Discord if you want to join us and have a bit of a chat about these new rules and codexes getting dropped. If you've got any topics you'd love to hear us yabber about on the podcast, do let us know. This is our pilot episode, and we're pretty keen to get your feedback, so drop a comment under the video. We'd love to hear what you think. cheers to everyone on
Definitely.
Patreon for your eternal support, and hopefully catch you next time if we decide to repeat it. Say goodnight, boys.
G'day, boys.
Cheers, guys.
Right.
Thanks for hearing.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Yeah.